based on our discussion about the programs, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this, that the instructional alignment. So if we have here the instructional alignment, we are fond of making lesson plans and we set the objectives. We have the instructional activities, and lastly, we give the assessments. Now, what would be the basis of the assessment? The assessment should be based on the objectives you first set in the lesson plan, because the lesson objectives will guide you on what activities to pursue, and also it will guide you on what to assess or to measure. So it will give you a glimpse or measurement if you really achieve your intended goals or targets. So that means for the alignment. So when defining this, it is a process of aligning the curriculum in one of the more of the following elements, like the standards, the standardized tests, curriculum embedded tests, students assignments, lesson plans, textbooks, and instructions. So all these things. Okay, so for example, on grade 6, the curriculum. So definitely we have here the lesson plan for across subjects: math, science, English, Filipino, history, and also the books being sold, okay, in public, is consonants or guided by the curriculum guide set by the Department of Education, and also the materials being used by the teachers. So all these things are what we call the instructional alignment to support the learning of the students. Okay, so we have here the types of alignment. We have the vertical alignment, that means planning curriculum across the grade levels from kindergarten through high school, building upon instruction upon based upon a standard. So for example, we have the subject English. So the complexity increases as the grade level increases, right? So we cannot teach synonyms to grade 1 learners yet, the deep level synonym. But we can have the simple words like the pronunciation, how to do this, and also to make sure that the abstract words must complement the concrete words. So for example, if you could see apple, apple for kids, right? So we have here the levels of English, grades one, two, three, four, five, six. So a different type of English will be lectured or will be given to students who reach grade 12, because their skills are already there, and the high level skills are evident among students. So we have to match the things or the levels that they have to their maturity, and that means their psychological and also their physiological development. So that means if we have here the alignment of the curriculum, I mean the subject across or the vertically level, so we have here the vertical alignment, and horizontal level, it's within or across. It's just like of a straight line, right? So horizontal alignment of the curriculum being taught by teachers in a common grade school. So for example, we have English 1, Filipino 1, MTB, MLE 1. So there's what we call the certain degree of difficulty or the average difficulty for the students on that level. And also for what would be expected for the skills and competencies for grade 6 students. For English 6, can they understand words? Can they are they able to extract the main idea of the paragraph? So if that's the case, if that's their level, if it's really feasible for them to do that, then we have the so-called the horizontal alignment. Okay, so for the instruction, we have to base this one. Okay, so just like in the things that we are aiming right now, how to improve teachers' competencies when it comes to curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So curriculum, that means what has been said, what should be taught. Okay, so that means we have the objectives, the standards, and also the strategies. For the instruction, that means the actual performance, no? So for the actual performance of the teacher teaching the subject before deploying the assessment. So for the curriculum or the standard, so written curriculum specifies what is to be taught and is produced by the state, the school system, the school, and the classroom teacher. So we have here the K to 12 curriculum guide coming from the Department of Education. Then it goes down from the national level, it goes down to the regional level, division, district, and the school. And from the school, they have their respective vision mission that need to be achieved inside the classroom through character formation, right? And also the teacher's way of delivering the content to the students must be taken consideration. And this one is enumerated first by having the written curriculum. The top curriculum is specifies what the teachers teach in the classes. So that means it's the actual content. So example in science, teaching cell biology, teaching parts of the cell. So if they're teaching parts of the cell to the students and they are educating them on the what are the parts like the mitochondrion, the ribosomes. So that means we have here the top curriculum. The curriculum is actually being placed from the mouth of the teacher and also given to the students. And lastly, we have here the tested curriculum. So after you have set the objectives, identify the parts of the cell, then definitely you have the strategies of teaching, identifying, labeling of parts of the cells and their functions. And you will have the formative or summative assessment. Then for the formative, that means their current progress or about the subject taught in just in one day. But for a unit test, that means a summative, you have particular objectives, then it's really long. Okay, so for the tested curriculum provides a valuable feedback about each student's understanding of essential content, concepts, and skills. So when challenging or when assessing the performance of the students, it should be based on what has been said. Okay, that's why we have here the components of alignment curriculum triangle, because these three are inseparable. So they are intertwined. Okay, so what has been said, what has been taught, what has been assessed. So written, taught, and tested curriculum. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that teachers have already given this as a go signal. I mean, we're practicing this inside the classroom, and we just have to remain faithful on what has been done or improve how we teach or how we deliver the content. For instructional planning, so we go down to the basics. So we have the determinants like the learners. So they are consumers of education. You know, for the stakeholders like the learners, parents, teachers, the government agencies, the heart of the whole educative process is placed among learners, because nothing will be said, nothing will be taught, nothing will be built if there are no learners. And all things that happen inside the classroom and also the objectives of the school can be traced towards the holistic development of the learners. Next one, we have here the society. Any society to progress economically must progress educationally. So if there are information or if there are courses that need to be done, I mean, need to do in a certain place. Like, for example, we have here the agriculture. So the school must respond to the needs of the society. Therefore, in order for them to progress in a certain locale, okay, in a certain setting. So that means we have here the society. The third one is the knowledge of the student. So set up an environment that will challenge all students to measure the knowledge. It will also be dependent on the growth or maturity of the students. So if we have grade 1 students, we cannot expect them to learn calculus. Also, it will be cumbersome, or it will be boring for grade 6 students to have an assessment of 1 plus 1, right? I mean, it's just a basic mathematics, and their level has already given up on that because they learned already the skills, and they place no challenge with that. They're not challenged with that. And then what would be the assessment on this, no? As teachers, we need to do the needs assessment on what could be the best point forward, what could be the next thing to do, okay? Or to let the students what they feel they need to get from our subject. Okay. So it is actually completed to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the existing curriculum situations and provide directions for improvement. It is a systematic exploration of the way things are and the way they should be. So we need to ask the students what would be their best choice or best course in that. That's why we have here the selection of courses, right? When they have selected the courses and the specifically want to do the select subjects in the morning, that means that that is their need, right? If they want at night because they are, part of the working society, so that means needs assessment. If you want to ask them what would be their course, okay, that means it needs assessment also, because you cannot you cannot compel students to love a subject that they don't like. Okay, so that means we have here the instructional planning. Also, when designing instruction, we have to formulate goals. And for the planning, goals are really important because this sets our vision towards something. We are aiming for something. So goals are actually statements of endpoints or outcomes of education, statement of purposes. By analyzing school goals, we can determine the scope of its entire educational program. So for the goals, just like what I mentioned, it says the direction because you want to achieve something. And if we want to achieve something, we have to do what it takes to achieve our target. So that means we have here the planning instructions. So what would be the sources of the goals? First one would be the learners. Okay, so their purposes, the interest, the developmental needs, and characteristics of the learner should guide appropriate goals. And for learners, they are really different. They're a mixture of characters. Can be good can be put in a good or bad light or bad situation. But for learners, if they're develop that hunger for learning, they will have that eagerness or desire with automaticity. You don't need to instruct them to learn something. If you already provided a dimension of learning that these kind of knowledge is what they really need. And if you as a teacher provided that scenario, that territory, that automaticity can be observed there. And you don't have to force them because they will do it automatically. Okay? Then for the society, definitely, the values and behaviors defined as desirable by a given society help shape education goals in that society. The school is an agent of cultural preservation, cultural transmission. We just have to preserve our timeless values like saying po and opo. And we resist changes that are not suitable for children. So for example, even if societals not to respect parents, but the school still adheres to the principle that this should be the case because being good, being moral is what is right, is the right thing to do for the students. And that means the society dictates that kind of culture. And the sources of goals is to manage or to control that kind of timeless values. No? So, society is really one of the things that we should consider because of the changing landscape. No, there are some sorts of innovation that may be considered good. Yeah, I mean that we need to innovate as a teacher, as teachers. Just like right now, we're using the platform, the online world, to continue the teaching and learning instruction, the teaching and learning delivery. And our classroom is not just only confined in the walls. Oh no, in the walls of the school. It's not just being seeing ourselves physically, but seeing ourselves virtually. Although there are some mishaps, there are some limitations, just like of the connection, the equipment, and also their expertise to navigate in the certain material, just like of the technological um gadgets, right? Or situation. So those are some of the factors. And lastly, for the sources of gold, so we have here the fund of knowledge, human knowledge that has been accumulated and organized for universal use and should be considered in shaping the goal. So just like what I mentioned, the timeless values, traditions, and the basic knowledge that students must know to solidify their upcoming knowledge, their next knowledge that need to be learned or the need to learn. Okay. There are levels of goals. It can be institutional goals for the school level or department goals. For example, science, math, program or curricular goals can be per subject or classroom or institutional goals. So that means the classroom level per teacher. Okay. Instructional implementation, that means we already created the lesson plan, the activities. We're in the business of implementing this or delivering the content actually to students. So this means the interaction between the curriculum that has been written and planned and the persons who oversee delivering them to the learners. But sometimes, no, I mean, when it comes to teaching, there are some minor twitch or considerations because we cannot force what would be the students' response because responses of the students are dependent on the situation. If they really like the subject, they will go with it. They will ask a lot about this, inquire a lot, raise hands. They will overpower the discussion in such a way that the information flow is really smooth. But for us teachers, we need to redirect or realign our thoughts to the main target in order not to use or overconsume our time to, just side topics or situation. And for the implementation, this is the phase where the teacher's action takes place. It means putting into practice the written curriculum that has been designed in the syllabi, course study, curricular guides, and the subjects. It's about delivering the content to the students. So that means we are taking consideration the strategies and how can we effectively deliver the contents to the students. And also it's the task of the students to absorb what has been taught or delivered to them. It was also a process wherein the learners acquire the planned or intended knowledge, skills, and attitudes to enable them to function effectively in the society. The main reason why we're teaching the subjects is because we want students to acquire certain skills that will be useful for the changing world. part of the working society because students will be working in the future. So we need to armor them with adequate skills and knowledge that should be learned in schools. Okay. Just like in certain degree courses, if they want to do, if they want to choose Bachelor of Science in Nursing, so they are required to have the skills to attend to the patient's needs and services. If they want to become a civil engineer, they want to attend to the needs of the constructions or firms to build strong foundations and houses in the future, and even designing places and landscapes, right? So that means we have here the instructional implementation. And lastly, Lux and Lieberman define curriculum implementation as a trying out of new practice and what it looks like when used in a school system. It simply means that implementation should bring the desired change and improvement. So there should be a probable change. And and when defining learning, it's about relatively change, permanent change in behavior, capacity or attitude that is defined through practice or experience. And as teachers, there we should bring about a desired change. So what change is that? Is it good or bad? So definitely we're leading towards a positive thing, positive disposition among students. So, for example, we thought about the environmental education. We want them to know the habits, the good things about planting trees. We instill them. So, even though our subject is done, that the students might be able to think, oh, okay, it's really good. It really helps the society. It really helps the environment. So I should continue the advocacy for that. No, I mean that's why we have developed students who are environmental oriented, joining organizations that protect the environment, right? So I mean it's about instilling the values that have been learned in the initially in the classroom and sustaining their interest or curiosity. It's about ticking a clock inside their head, and it makes the clock turning and turning even though the subject is really is done. And they have the sense of automation and that because they want to help the environment, placing importance that this is really their advocacy or passion. So one of the good things of having or implementing the curriculum, right? So definitely these things like the planning, implementation, and assessment all boils down to the teacher competence. Okay. And for teacher competence, it's really important because the students could not realize what would be their take on that if they are not challenged to do things on themselves. And we are considered as the scaffold area, as an instrument for them to realize their goals and targets. And in when defining competency, this consists of one or more skills whose mastery would enable the attainment of the competency. So uh would you think of teachers teaching math subject without no math subject at all? I mean, without having learned math subject in the previous years? Definitely no. Because the teachers, just like what we mentioned, we cannot teach what we don't have. We cannot give something what we don't possess, right? So just like in the knowledge or experience, if we know that we cannot teach a subject, we're not competent in doing so. We're not competent in handling that. And in the teacher's competencies, how about instructing students to behave when you yourself are not having that kind of authoritarian figure? Some sort of image for the teachers to be followed by the students, right? So in order for us to be sundin or to be instructed or be in to display that kind of authority, we should act as one, right? or having the authority. If we want ourselves, the students to be amazed with us or having the expert power, we must have the competency. And for the competency is linked to all three domains under which performance can be assessed, like the knowledge, skills, and attitude. The KSA. And when you establish the lesson objectives, this has three domains. What are those? We have their C, A, and P. Or the CAP domains, the cognitive, affective, and the psychomotor. Possessing a performance dimension competencies are observable and verifiable. Okay, and observable, verifiable, something that can be seen, or when we use our senses, sense of hearing, sense of taste, touch, and sense of sight. Since competencies are observable, they're also measurable. It is possible to assess competency from a teacher's performance. That's why they always thought that the students' success is also teachers' success. What if the students are actually underperforming despite teachers' maximum or optimizing teaching instruction? What would be the case? So there's a disconnect on that. How can we say that the teacher is performing if a lot of student is failing? something something that we should you should ponder. That's why teachers are also, if we want to establish the curriculum, we want to make a connection of that. What drive that one? I mean, why despite the teachers constant communication, the performance, that why there's still students who fail? Why students are still failing? Something like that. Okay. While it's true, majority, right, that the student success is the teacher success, but there are some exceptions on the rule. Okay. And teaching competencies may require equal amounts of knowledge, skill, and attitude, but some will not. Some competencies may involve more knowledge than skill or attitude, where others may be skill or performance based. Example, dance, right? Although it requires some sort of cognitive, but it's more on performance based because you will do a certain thing. You will dance, right? And when you dance, you use your body. You're involved in gestures, movement from one place to another. What would be the skill naman for the music? Definitely it's a tactile also. And with the use of the hands and also of your body. But there are some sort of cognitive them by recognizing or even memorizing the notes that should be, key in the piano, right? And other things like mathematics, what would be the skill? Definitely, it's a more on the cognitive or the knowledge. It's in the process skills, because if you cannot apply the process from the example to new situations, then you fail to recognize the patterns or procedures. So that means it's sort of the cognitive rather than psychomotor. But for the psychomotor, it's just like a moving of the hands, and also the psychomotor properties operating inside your brain in order for you to recognize patterns and procedures and to apply this to new demands or situations. Diba? Then some competencies may involve more knowledge and skills, and whereas maybe more skill or performance based. That's why for teachers, it's important that we already possess the skills, because we cannot transfer skills if we don't know how to use it. Okay. And for students to learn a certain skill, a certain skill, it should be taught by the ones who are more knowledgeable than them. than they are. And this is essentially us, teachers. And for the teaching competence, so competency is more than just knowledge and skills. It involves the ability to meet complex demands by drawing on and mobilizing psychosocial resources. In particular context, competency is essential to an educator's pursuit of excellence. If we want to have quality teaching or quality learning, it should start by having or giving quality teaching, because to students we cannot give up on the students' understanding. We want to exhaust all means for them to learn, and that means what means competency. If we fail to recognize patterns and procedures, if we fail to innovate, and we just stand there, stay still without doing something, so that means failing to recognize the individual differences among students. You know, as teachers need a wide range of competence in order to face the complex challenges of today's world. There are many challenges, just like of the inflation, the science, the ongoing pandemic, and also the incoming pursuits or the biological warfare and other things that need attention. And as teachers, we need to make sure that students are advancing when it comes to thinking. Because if they think alike, just like us, they will think of a creative solution. And sometimes that will wonder us, or it will really amaze us that we taught them how to use their mind to extract creative solutions to a problem. Okay? So, teaching competency is an inherent element of an effective training process, the one that aspires to contribute to the welfare of a particular country or the world itself. It will benefit not only the students, not only the teachers or the school, but also the world, because they will self-actualize in the future. Just like our leaders right now are students of yesterday, right? They will inherit the things that they are seeing right now, and we train them to be particulars in the future. And just like me, I was a student before, and just like you were students before, but right now we are all teachers, and we are now training students, and what we are giving the students are results of the multitude factors, or the things, or the trainings that we receive during our undergraduate and even our teaching experiences. So that means it's a conglomeration of all aspects, education, background, experiences, and training to improve the way how we see the world, and you know affect eventually translating this into teaching and towards our teaching competence. The central figures in the educational process are teachers. So the success of training education depends on their preparation, erudition, and performance quality. So do you think that the students will learn if teachers are not teaching? I'm specifically not in good terms when I hear some students saying their teachers are not teaching, even at the online setup. And they are extracting, I mean, they are taking advantage of the situation of not having the internet connection, not to as alibi not to teach. But with these certain groups right now, I mean, we should have gathered means or ways to innovate, because this is the normal now. There's no such thing as the new normal. There are situations that happened before, and those are the normal things before. But right now, these are the things that we do normally right now. Okay? So that means we have here the teaching competence. And as teachers, we have to innovate our way of thinking. It's, it emanates from our system's way of designing things, how we implement the instruction, how we plan the instruction, how we implement like teaching instructional materials, teaching activities, and how we assess students, and unlike the usual quiz or objective type of test. So that means the authentic assessment. So in improving instruction when it comes to levels of pedagogical competency, so we have here the ability. It's just characterized by detailed knowledge of the subject. So if we have here the detailed knowledge of the subject, so that means we know what to teach. No? We know what to teach, we know inquiry based, we know reflective thinking. So we already have the idea on how to implement this. But sometimes, no, we know that what we know is not actually translated to matters, to actual thing, because what we know is just inside our head, inside our skull, right? But the way on how we translate what's inside our head is what matters the most for the students, because they will benefit from it. Okay. Second one is we have here the pedagogical skill. It's the art of teaching. Okay. You know, we may understand that for pre-service teachers, as neophyte teachers, we're still at the decisive phase. Okay, what to do? We have lots of teaching materials. We have lots of materials to innovate and such. So we are experimenting ways on how can we deliver the content effectively by teaching. Okay, content is what the teachers hold dear. I mean, what should be the master of the teacher, their specialization, but and communicating what's inside their head, the knowledge, is also another thing. It's about delivering the content to students and make sure that they appreciate the lesson, because aside from teaching the content, we want to make sure that appreciation is really there for the students. And the third one we have here, the creativity marked by the implementation of new methods and techniques into educational activities. Example, we have blogging. Okay. So there are things or situations that cannot be done by the teacher alone, but we can bank on the creativity skills of the students so that they may implement new methods, okay, and techniques. Blogging, directing, content creating, sharing to the public, diba? I mean, those are the pedagogical creativities that we can tap when using the online platform or setup. And the port level, we have the innovation distinguished by incorporation of new progressive theoretical ideas, principles, and practices of training and education. So when we talk about the innovation and how can we really improve the teaching situation, and also how can we make use of our tools like Kahoot, Mentimeter, the online survey, Survey Monkey, Google Forms. How can we make sure that these innovations will complement our teaching schedule? Okay, or complement our teaching activities. So it's about breaking boundaries from the traditional one. So maybe we can say the unconventional way of teaching a subject, but the students with this unconventional way, it will trigger the curiosity of the students, because this is something new to their eyesight, and this is something new to their taste or experience. And just like us, no, I mean, if we are exposed into something new, we are challenged to do things, and we are amazed, somehow curious about it, how to do this, how can we make things right. So we try and we explore, right? So also for the innovation, trying out boundaries, situations, limitations for them from the usual, or from the aside from the apart from the conventional way of teaching. So that means innovation. We also have to take consideration on the TIPAC model. So we already know the instruction, planning, assessment, and also the activities. How can we improve ourselves, our competencies, our teachers? You know, it's really particular right now to have the TIPAC model, because we have here the content knowledge. Yeah, that's a really good for teachers. I mean, we should have the content knowledge because we have here the specialization. We want to teach something for the students. But you know, it's just one circle, right? And another circle that's for pedagogical knowledge is the art of teaching. And the insertion also of another circle or another dimension, that is the technological knowledge. How can we make use of technology to facilitate learning? Okay. And also, not only learning for the students, to facilitate or to aid our instruction among students. And if we have here the convergence of the circles, right? Or, you know, this one is the Venn diagram. We have here the TPK, technological pedagogical knowledge, technological content knowledge, and pedagogical content knowledge, or the PCK. We know what to teach, we know how to teach, but which method should we teach? So that means that the technology. So incorporation of the three dimensions or three big areas in teach, we'll have here the TPAC model. It's the technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge when it comes to teaching. So we need to expand our circles when it comes to technological knowledge and pedagogical knowledge. And also, if we want to explore more on the things that we can share to the students, we should expand also our content knowledge. So that means the incorporation of all these three into this model, the TPAC model. Okay, so knowing all these things, the innovations, and how we define competencies for the teachers, how we use certain skills, okay, to improve the teaching practice. Now, we want to look what research studies say about teaching competencies. How can we really improve the instruction? 'Di ba? That's the main goal. That's the topic right now. And how can we plan? How can we implement? How to assess the instruction? So we're now going on to the research-based innovative programs for teachers. So we have here, mostly you will say, what do you think by this? These are the inset, in-service programs. Yes, actually, those are the things that we can actually get from the in-service training program for teachers prior the start of the school year. And you know, for the prior the start of the school year, it should provide teachers a new dimension, a new perspective of teaching, so that you know the knowledge will not be circular and not be recycled, but there are some fresh feed of information to be given to students. Okay. In this at this juncture, I'll give you two research studies. So for the first one, it's about the improving the 21st century teaching skills, or the key to effective 21st century learners. And you know, for the teaching instruction, okay, it also engages the students learning. Okay. So we cannot teach what we don't have. If we don't have the competencies or skills, then probably we cannot aspire, or we cannot demand learning for the students. And I'll be having this in this topic is about the teacher instructional practices and processes system. So this is one of the tools given on the research, and it is actually a classroom observation instrument designed with such considerations in mind, and specifically to assess process quality. You know, we're aiming about the quality instruction, and if we are achieving quality instruction, it depends on the training given to teachers. And you know, the teachers are at the heart of this, and we are in the process of giving learning to students, affecting learning. So we should have the classroom observation instrument. And you know, the tips was developed to look at the teaching processes in the granular nuanced, and culturally relevant manner so that information could be fed back to teachers to improve their performance, as well as student academic and social emotional outcomes, not only on the part of the development of the students side or outcomes, but also giving them ways or perspectives to translate. No, even though it's no, it's not that automatic. I mean, it's not that compelling, but you know, it's the automaticity of the instruction because that has been already imbued in the character of teacher. So there's no way for them not to translate what has been imprinted on them to the students, and their knowledge will be useful for the development of their students. So this is actually the tips complex of thinking dimension by developmental level. So as you can see, the complex thinking dimension from early childhood, primary, and secondary. So these are the teacher encourages children to use language to reason and problem to solve. So these are just the things that the teachers should accomplish, no? It depends on type of learners, like in early childhood, primary, and secondary. Then the importance of concepts, these are the indicators. Then these are examples on how can we really see, how can we really observe that the indicators are the dimensions have been achieved. And you know, it's really related on the kind of training or the kind of information being fed by the teachers. You know, the problem is about teacher competencies. Bakit kaya, no? Why is it really a problem? You know, the performance is based the success or the quality of the institution lies on the training of the educators, and also it will be translated to students. And the development of competencies known as the 21st century skills are garnering increasing attention as a means of improving in teacher instructional quality. However, a key challenge in bringing about desired improvements like in the lack of specific context, specific understanding of teaching practices, and meaningful ways of supporting teacher professional development. That's why it's important that for every year or for every scenario before the class session starts, we have the in-service training to ignite or to know the teachers stand on teaching, and this will bring about their improvements because you just want to fire up something within them and to not make it bloody cold, right? And it's about the understanding of the meaningful way supporting teacher professional development. And you know, classroom instructional quality can serve as a critical lever for educational change. The way teachers give instruction to improve their instruction is the way we train them to achieve quality. And definitely, then the quality, the question here, what kind of training do they receive to achieve or to qualify as a quality, right? So this can be trace on the study that I have shown earlier, and their findings would be two. No, it's about the teacher feedback. So we have here the peer mentoring and also giving of feedback with the colleagues. That's why it's important that we do the classroom observation, not just to let teachers that doing their job. No, I mean others, they just want to observe classrooms if teachers are really teaching inside the classroom, but it should not, it should go beyond its the natural or the basic purpose that the teacher feedback about classroom observation. It's about their teaching performance, but we should use an instrument just like what I showed earlier. We have here the tips, right? The classroom observation tool will be helpful for the teachers that they should do this prior the observation, or we have here the teacher feedback to be given after the session. Okay, so having the post conference. Sustained meaningful changes in the processes of the classroom requires feedback that is purpose for the continuous improvement and ongoing support of the teachers. As teachers, we are all students still. We all have something to give or to teach. We all have something to learn still. And this one can be, just like in the teachers, it's based on experience. And for the seasoned teachers, for those who are long in service, definitely we will get not just knowledge but wisdom from their experience. And from their experience, we can basically bank on that and apply this to our existing situation. But there are also means or ways on how can we develop our standards or situations to achieve quality. No? Generic feedback is unhelpful towards improving core practices of the teacher because it's not providing information that is actionable. So, generic feedback like improve visual aids, improve the guide questions in the classroom, or something like that. Those are generic feedback. But about having the feedback, I think it would be suitable if the font size will be increased and also some of the interactive images will be placed on the presentation to make it suitable for the learner. So for if that's the case, that's a clear feedback. So this is what we call the granular feedback. So it's about bits or information. This allows teacher to reflect on the past performance as well as support for action for future change. This degree of specificity has proven to be the most valuable information to feedback to teachers. If we are very specific about things to point out on the teachers, they will really appreciate that one because that means for improvement. As long as our purpose is for improvement and not just to detest or to decry their mishap on that. Because yes, we can see our it's a that's why it's called improvement. That's not a wrong thing because they thought of this as good or maybe suitable for that level, but something that we can improve or we can achieve more. Okay. But for this one, this will be the purpose of having the granular feedback. So it's important that if we have already teacher feedback or practice, we improve the instruction. So definitely after the feedback or the post conference, they know how to plan, how to improve their plan, how to improve their instruction, how to improve their assessment. And maybe we give them considerations to, just self having a reflective practice on their own, but this one should be guided also. Okay, this is emphasizes the ability to recognize and monitor one's own thinking, understanding, and knowledge about teaching. If you are that kind of teacher who can self-regulate, If you can self-regulate, you can monitor your thinking, and you have the means or ways for you to really achieve that one. So maybe reflective practices on you. But there are means or ways also that we can give questions. What would be your important points about this? How can you really improve on your practice? What would be your primary considerations or motivations? So if that's the case, you dig something within your mind. So it's about reflecting something on how can you really improve your practice. So for example, you have increased pay. No, no. I mean, for the increased pay, that would mean your means of living. Then that means improving also your performance or eventually the teaching quality. So true reflective practice can be a powerful medium to affect behavior change, but oftentimes teachers need assistance, guidance, or support structures in order to improve their practice. So definitely as mentors or administrators, maybe more or less it will be from the head teachers, coordinators who, who supervise the teachers in teams, in clusters. So reflective practice or teaching is a must. This type of teacher support frequently comes in the form of teacher mentorship and coaching, and is generally understood to be intensive, ongoing, responsive, and collaborative job support. Because if you achieve this one, you will receive commendations from your colleagues or peers, and you have achieved teaching quality. No? If you came to realize if you can self-regulate, how can you improve your teaching? You ask yourself, you do the introspection. That means reflective practice. So for the conclusions on the journal, so in order to create 21st century learners, we must focus on 21st teachers, 21st century skills, and reconceptualize how we can evaluate and train teachers. And the key to improving teacher practices is with granular and clear feedback. So give specific instructions, give specific details on how can they really improve, on what areas to improve. And teaching skills such as critical thinking require that teachers be educated in a manner that is reflective of that process. Critical. So that means regulation of their mind. They know how to optimize or to see themselves in the mirror, and through professional development that engages ongoing reflections and continuous learning. Okay. So it's important for this not to innovate the programs, to innovate new things. In the future, you should have the teacher feedback or from the observation, and also the reflective practice as for you as teacher, as a teacher in the subject. How can you improve yourself in the future? And another study, it's about the teacher development program to enhance learning competency for small primary schools in Thailand. So for the background, it's about the teachers' competencies have the optimal impact on the students' learning. And therefore, teachers have to develop themselves in order to excel and augment their competencies, and learning management and teacher empowerment consequently will lead to students' effective learning. You know, it's really dependent, right? I mean, even research suggests that the students' learning will be achieved when when we develop teacher competencies. And the feedback on this or the framework can be the current status of the teachers, the patterns of development. So actually in this research, they develop teacher training program. So there's what we call the seminar, like the having the module 1, module 2 workshop, module 3, and module 4 collaborative assessment. And for the output, so that means the competencies and the participants become knowledgeable and more professional. So this one, it's about creating a program for teachers to revisit their thinking and to input what has been changed after the seminar. So these are the framework. So as mentioned, as we cry, we actually about our battle cry for this webinar. It's about the teacher's competences is equal to students' learning, and these are the learning process, contents theory, and teachers' learning management. And after a program, what's the after the program implementation, the teachers were very satisfied with the outcome. So that means about 83.80% of the development process. So they were very satisfied, receptive on the programs given to them, to their program, and related to teachers' assessments and feedbacks from four aspects. It's about support. Syempre, it means support. Just like in the usual environment, we have support from students, from the administrators, and also for fellow teachers, right? Promotion, it also gives them the idea on how they relate well, and it's just appreciation of their work that they're also developing because their salary is also developing, right? And that means for promotion, syllabus analysis and organization all do indicate at a higher rank. So syllabus analysis, that means the contents that should be taught for a particular course or grade level, and organization, that means how it is structured. Okay, how it is structured. So these are the levels for the teacher's competencies. For the findings, maybe summarize it to three. So collaborative action for teacher professional project. So this aim to foster knowledge, develop teachers to be comprehensive, having good attitudes to work together. Second one, it's about applying cognitive load theory for instructional design projects. So that means cognitive load, it's about giving information in the form of bits and information to be inserted in our head. So this is in order to reduce cognitive load and to optimize the working memory for teachers' instructional design in the five learning areas. So maybe it's about time to deload teachers with the administrative tasks and to just focus on teaching. Show and share for learning and networking project. This is actually a platform for knowledge exchange among schools. This project has provided networking innovation for the academic management of small schools. So the learning centers were collaboratively set up by administrative staff under the same network. So that means it's about sharing of the best practices. No, so what would be the good thing that the teacher has done in the classroom that can be given also, or that can be shared to other teachers so that they can also do the same if the situations if the situation warrants them to do so. So for the recommendations, also it's about the role of the administrators, no, in realizing the importance of the teacher development programs. They should organize meetings for stakeholders and select master teachers to participate in the development program. So it's important that we have here the in-service talaga, no, in-service training for teachers, so that they will revisit their thinking. They will have to rekindle what's inside their heart, that is the passion for teaching also. Then the school context needs to be examined to identify problems and guidelines for setting goals. It will be good for them, for the administrators to ask what would be the needs of the teachers. So what the researchers would like to recommend that the school administrators give their full support for all the quality projects in schools. In turn, would benefit teachers through supervision, inspection, follow-up project, teacher professional development networks, and the establishment of academic administration center. So everything that is geared towards the teacher's development definitely should not be learned only in schools, but to the kind of training that they receive to as a teacher to heighten their standard, to lengthen their patience, and also to give priority to their voices, no? And we are considered instruments of change. And if we know how to address the needs of the teachers, and probably it will be translated, even though you're not saying it, it's not compelling, it will be paid forward, not to the school only, but to the students in general. Okay?